Welcome to the Winterberry Wildlife Tech Series. Today we'll be fixing a Browning Advantage Spec Ops trail camera which is experiencing run-on triggering. Run-on triggering occurs after a legitimate trigger and causes the camera to take a series of empty videos. Run-on triggering in these cameras is caused by heat leaking from the microprocessor on the right. The heat expands through the circuit board. In a few seconds, the heat is conducted to the PIR sensor. The PIR sensor is a sensitive heat detector, and it mistakes the local rise in temperature as a trigger. This process continues for several run-on trigger events until the temperature of the circuit board stops rising. One way to work around this problem is to set a longer photo delay. 5 seconds is usually enough to break the cycle, but this can miss good footage. In this video, I show a fix for this problem that often works. It reduces the thermal contact to the PIR sensor by pushing it off the circuit board. I do this by first unsoldering the 4 pins which hold it to the circuit board. Then I carefully push the pins and the sensor out above the circuit board by about 1 millimeter, and finally I solder the PIR sensor pins back in. In real life, there are a couple of tools that make this job much easier. These include a stand for holding the circuit board, some copper braid, for example solder wick, that absorbs molten solder, and some flux. A binocular dissecting scope, not shown, also helps a lot. The trickiest part of this repair is completely removing the solder from each of the 4 pins using the copper braid. In this sequence, I show what this looks like through the lens of the dissecting scope. Note how the surface tension of the copper braid, which I've previously wiped with flux, pulls the solder off the board and out from around the pins. After all the solder is removed, you can see the pins standing a little proud of the circuit board. I push these in with a flathead screwdriver, only about 1 millimeter, and resolder them. Then the camera goes back together. As I said, this procedure often fixes the run-on problem, though not always. I hope this helps with your camera trapping. Please see my other videos, including a teardown of the Advantage camera. Subscribe to see more on the technology of camera trapping.